All right, guys, so we have another case of the mainstream media being wrong. Once again, just plain wrong, because they're fake news, man. They really are. I don't know how many more examples of this do we have to see in order for us to realize that, mainstream media really can't be trusted, right? All that much. They just really can't, because they have an agenda. And guys, last year, the agenda before the election from the mainstream media was to make Trump look as bad as possible, no matter what, even if they had to grasp at straws. And that's what happened with the so-called photo op at Lafayette Park at St. John's Church, right? In which they accused Trump, right? They accused Trump of using the Capitol Police to clear out the peaceful, fiery but peaceful protesters that were there during the George Floyd protests. Okay, they accused Trump of tear gassing them, having the police violently clear them out just so he could take a photo op, a picture of himself holding up the Bible at a church. Okay, that's what they accused him of, and they ran with that story that Trump was somehow behind that. And now all of a sudden, the Inspector General, Mark Greenblatt, came out with a report basically saying, nah, that's not what happened. What actually happened was that the Capitol Police were planning on clearing out that area way beforehand, okay? And it had nothing to do with Trump's plan on going there, okay? It had nothing to do with it. So now the media is super salty, because again, like a lot of stories that they get wrong, like the Hunter Biden story, for example, right? They ran with a certain narrative. A narrative that was against Trump, and now all of a sudden they've been proven wrong once again. And I just want you guys to see probably one of the saltiest members of the media, Jim Acosta, talk about this, because you can just feel the salt coming out of his eyes. Take a listen.
With his photo op in front of the church there. Right. Tell us what we're learning. Yeah. And tell us what this means. Tell us if this raises more questions than it answers. What do you think?
Well, I certainly think it raises more questions than it answers. I mean, the IG report is saying that the park police cleared the park with the purpose of setting up this fence, because obviously the protesters needed to be moved back from this area where they were defacing statues and potentially pulling down the Andrew Jackson statue and so on. I was in the Rose Garden that day when Trump gave that speech and said, I'm going to go to this special place, talking about the church. And you could hear the park police and other federal forces, D.C. police, clearing that park. They were violently pummeling protesters, tear gassing protesters. Remember, at the time, the White House was telling us, oh, we didn't use tear gas. The D.C. police were using tear gas. The other thing that is not clear about all of this is, what did the White House team know at this time? According to the Inspector General's report, they did not speak to senior White House officials. They did not speak to the Secret Service. So this certainly raises more questions. And I have to say, when I read through this report, it sounded as if this Inspector General was auditioning to become the Inspector General at Mar-a-Lago. Because, this is almost a whitewash of what occurred on June 1st. These protesters were largely demonstrating peacefully and were violently cleared from that park. It was just a huge blow to the First Amendment, I think, in this country. You can't have protesters pummeled by police officers when they're trying to make a statement about racial justice in this country.
All right, guys. So as you can see, he's salty, right? He's like, I can't believe it. I can't believe it, right? He can't believe it because it's not the outcome that he wanted, right? Him and all his media buddies ran with the false narrative that, Trump was violently removing protesters so he could take a photo op, right? These protesters that were protesting for racial justice, okay? And you notice how he tries to use the word peaceful, right? Although there were fires at that church. He also admitted that they were damaging property and trying to pull down a statue of Andrew Jackson. But yet he tries to frame them as peaceful, okay? Fires at the church, right? And we all saw how much damage was done to DC and across the whole country from these protests. But yet these people in the media, they make sure they try to frame it as peaceful, okay? They try to frame it as peaceful. And when it comes to the Capitol incident, they framed that as violent as possible. That was the most violent thing ever. right? Wait, one of these clowns on CNN, I mean, they try to frame that as what? The worst act of political violence since the Civil War, right? Worse than JFK getting shot, worse than 9/11. I mean, like, this is the media narrative here, guys. You see how the media does this, right? Both incidents are wrong, but yet one of them, they have to take the side of one of them because it fits the mainstream narrative. They don't want to be called racist. They don't want to be called racist for calling it what it is. And that's what really bothers me about the media. It's not just in a story like this where, you know, they obviously just lied, right? They made up information. They extrapolated that somehow Trump was behind these protesters being removed, even though the police had planned to remove them anyways. And shit, if they was right-wing protesters, I guarantee you the media wouldn't be defending them, right? If Biden was in the White House and there was right-wing protests outside of the White House, they wouldn't be defending it. They wouldn't be defending it. But because it's a left-wing group, it's okay for them to, you know, riot right outside the White House. It's okay for them to riot out there. You know, it's a little small fire. It's a fire, but again, mostly fiery but peaceful, right? There's some fires here and there. There's some damage and destruction here and there. There's some people getting hurt here and there, but it's mostly peaceful, right? That's the narrative. It just doesn't bother me the fact that they basically lied and insinuated that Trump was forcefully, like, using the Capitol Police to remove peaceful protesters, right? Which, I mean, that is a very effective way of framing something, guys. When you're the media and you're trying to tell the uneducated layman about what's going on, right? That type of narrative really can make somebody look really, really bad. It really can. Because that is a bad look, right? For the president to be using the police to remove protesters, for him to take pictures with the Bible or the church, that's not a good look. And the media running with that narrative, not having all the facts, is really disgusting, right? It really is. Again, these are supposed to be so-called journalists. And like I said, not only that, they also go and they try to frame the protesters as more peaceful than they actually were. That's also another thing too. Because that's a part of the narrative. They're doing nothing wrong. They're outside peacefully protesting. They're just chanting and singing Kumbaya, right? That's what they do. And guys, I'm going to be honest with you. During times like this, I wish that my channel was a lot bigger than what it is right now. I wish that I was able to go on CNN. Okay, I really want to go on these networks and challenge these people, right? On this narrative that somehow these left-wing protests are not a danger to this country, that is not a threat to this country, but any type of right-wing protest or riot or whatever you want to call it, that's a threat. Because the way to beat these guys is that you need somebody to go up there and say, yeah, what happened at the Capitol was wrong in terms of January 6th. I'm admitting that that's wrong. So let's talk about what happened all last year. Are you saying that that wasn't wrong at all? Are you saying that violence is justified? Oh, so you're saying that violence is justified because 200 and some black people are killed per year by the police? Is that what you're saying? That's what you're saying. Because what they're actually protesting about and what they're destroying our cities over and destroying lives over, most of those police shootings are justified. So at most, we're talking about maybe 10 unjustified killings by the police per year. So you think that causing billions of dollars in damage and destroying black businesses, having police officers like David Dorn lose their life, you think that's worth it because of this? You think that violence is justified? And if you think that, that's fine. I just want you to say it, because that's what you're saying. That's how you would corner somebody on this type of debate. Just go, oh no, yeah, what happened at the Capitol was wrong. No, you're absolutely right about that. Let's talk about what happened last year. But see, nobody ever does that. And that's what really bothers me, because nobody ever puts these people on the spot and to make them admit that what happened last year needs to be addressed. They always want to talk about political violence, this, political violence, that. We've seen the most political violence that I've ever seen in my lifetime, right? Just happened last year. But the mainstream media ignores it. And guys, it pisses me off, man. It really does. It really does. Because it just shows how much the media is nothing but propaganda. And I don't know how many times they have to be wrong over and over and over and over again for people to realize, okay, something's not right. They're not concerned about objective truth. They're not concerned about what's right. What they're concerned about is pushing the mainstream Democratic narrative. That's what they're concerned about. They're concerned about pushing the narrative that Trump is the worst thing ever. Orange man bad. They're not concerned about telling the truth in objective reality. That's not what they're concerned about. And nobody ever challenges them on the objective reality. And again, that really bothers me. And I just really wish that I can go on these networks and just challenge these people on this narrative. Because I know I could corner them so hard, right, on this stuff. It'd be so easy. I ain't scared of being called racist. What you gonna say to me? I'm racist against black people? How's that sound? Okay, I'm black. Why'd I be racist against my own people? See, and this is why they never have black conservatives up there. They never have black conservatives up there to talk about this issue. They never do. Because it's awkward for them to talk about, right? You can't pull out the race card on me, so hey, let's do it. Let's talk about it. You know, and guys, every single time I talk to liberals about this, anytime I bring up the fact that the BLM protests weren't peaceful and they was rioting, protesting the street and destroying black business, they're quiet. Especially white liberals. They have nothing to say. They have no counterpoint because they can't sit here and tell me that what I'm saying is wrong. Okay? Because I'm black. Right? I'm using my black privilege. So, anyways, man, yeah, the media once again gets it wrong. And like I said, this is just one of many times in which the media is now doing an about face. They're having to eat crow because, you know, because they were so obsessed with proving that Orange Man bad that they didn't really care about the facts. They didn't really care about doing their jobs. So let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a black conservative perspective. Peace.